All right. Hello, everyone. I think this thing is on. Welcome to another monthly Redwood Talks. It is a pleasure to have you here with us. And we have two exciting, pushes the buttons real quick. Let me stop there so now I can see full screen. We have two fun talks today that I'm excited to introduce both. First half of this time, the format will be a 20-minute presentation, about 10 minutes for discussion. We'll do that twice. And the first presentation, we're going to look at using AI, generative AI, specifically ChatGPT, for building an application, possibly a company. And the second, we have some exciting new features that are coming up in Redwood, and you're going to see some demos from the Redwood Core Team. The Redwood Talks is a monthly presentation that we do as the Redwood Core Team. We found we were interacting, engaging with exciting partners. We were doing experiments internally that we were excited about, and we wanted to create a specific time, a regular time once a month, where we could share some things we're learning and invite our new friends and those in the ecosystem to show us what they were learning and working on. And we decided this was something that would be awesome to share with the community. So that's why we invite you all publicly to come and join us to learn along with us and see these presentations. So the first presentation I have is by Martin Kess, and Martin is from Fractal Software. Fractal Software is a venture firm meets venture studio. They help start companies. Many of those companies that are on in using RedwoodJS, but Fractal Software, where Martin works, he's the head of engineering in my heart. He's a CTO, and he's going to guide us through using AI tools, specifically ChatGPT for ideation, domain modeling, coding, and business processes like marketing. I have a video presentation that Martin has shared with us, and then he'll be here for, he's actually on right now, he'll be here for discussion Q&A afterwards. So with no further ado, I'm going to get this video presentation started for Martin. Give me just a second, and we'll kick it off. All right, I think we're good. We'll start the video. If the sound and video does not come through, if someone will let me know in chat, I'll fix it, but I think we got it here. So here's Martin Kress on ChatGPT with Redwood.
My name is Martin, and today what I want to talk to you about is how I use tools like ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot to really accelerate my development. We're going to frame this around RedwoodJS. This talk's only about 20 minutes long, and so we're not going to have time probably to wire everything. To build really good businesses, by leaning on these tools. Like I said, we're not going to have enough time to go into a ton of depth into any of these areas, but I hope that this really gives you some creative ideas on how to leverage these tools. And so what I've done here, I've created a brand new React and Redwood and TypeScript app on Redwood 4.5, which just came out today. Super exciting to see the pace that the team is moving at. And then I just created the dbauth, SQLite dbauth user, put the model in here, and I'm using Mantine UI. But other than that, this is a vanilla project. And today what we're going to do is we're going to build at least the building blocks or the skeleton of a simple to-do application, right? So managing a list of tasks or to-do items. But we're going to lean on AI to do this, right? And so first, I'm going to switch over to ChatGPT, and let's jump in here. And so let's just describe the problem. Say, hey, I'm building a to-do application to help users manage their tasks for a day. It should support, but let's come up with a fairly, we're not just going to do a simple checklist, right? Like to do MVC, although I do recommend going through that exercise yourselves as you're learning, if you haven't already, as you're learning frameworks like Redwood. But let's say this, I want it to support labels, simple to-do items, and we're going to talk about it. We'll be a little bit vague, actually. Let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. I want it to support nesting, e.g., they can have a parent and labels in the form of hashtags. And then so we've described basic requirements for our application here. And what I want to get it to do is come up with some Prisma models. So write Prisma models for this. And we'll give it, just as a starting point, our user model looks like this. Our user model now, okay, it's moving pretty quickly. One thing I've seen for sure is GPT-4, especially, it's probably the most popular app on the internet right now. It can be slow sometimes, but it's actually moving along pretty quickly. So I may have to edit this a little bit if it's too slow. And so you can see it's got a task. The task has a title and a description. It's got a completed field, a due date. We didn't even ask it for a due date, but it inferred that from everything, and it's associated with a user, and it potentially has a parent as its, as its thing. And then you can also see it has its subtasks and labels. And it's going to come up with all these models. And this is pretty powerful, right? Like, no doubt you could have come up with something like this, but we get a model right away that looks pretty good to me, right? So let's start here. I'm going to just grab this since we've already got the user model, and you can see it's even explaining how it did things. So let's see if that worked. Cool. Prisma seems happy with it. You can see how we've done this. Okay. So now, let's say I want to change this a little bit, right? Like rather than, let's say we want to turn this into some code, right? So we've got our database models. One of the things that I want is to be able to have the user type in plain text, right? And so like I want the user, and I'm going to describe this, and essentially you're going to be able to type some hashtags, and these are going to get applied to labels. And so let's say this, I want in the description or title, the user should be able to type in any labels they want to apply. For example, record Redwood hashtag, Redwood talk, and share it. I want a Reddit function in TypeScript to extract those labels. In this case, Redwood and share. Cool, and it's going to do regular expressions and build this. So let's see what it comes up with. And note, referring to TypeScript, right? I want it to write TypeScript. It can write pretty much any programming language. I even have a friend who uses OCaml, and he says it does a very good job writing OCaml. Cool, pretty simple, right? So we can take this code, and let's take a look and see if it works, right? So I'm going to copy it in here. Let's go into our source thing. Let's put this in a lib, and maybe let's call this new file tags.ts. So we're going to put it here. Well, let's export it because we got to write like this. And neat. Okay, but how do we test this? Well, oops, I'm sorry. Let's say write some jest tests for extract hashtags. And notice I mistyped it, but I mistyped extract hashtag, not on purpose, but you can see that it's flexible, right? It picks up on these things. One of the coolest things though is how it writes these tests. And so you can see it's explaining stuff. If you ask it to say, just don't explain, just output the tests. Yeah. It gets, definitely a thing that I've learned with ChatGPT is it does get fairly verbose. But that's okay. So while it's doing this, I'm going to switch over. Let's create our tags.test.ts. Let's go here, tags.test.ts. Interesting. Like, look at that. It another non-requirement, but I think this is a reasonable one, right? Where it actually, you can see here, it kind of added. I didn't ask it to handle only lowercase hashtags, and maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. I like this feature, but a really cool thing about ChatGPT in general is it comes up with a good set of use cases. So let's see if this works, and it might not. Like one of the limitations of ChatGPT, of course, is it doesn't always get things right. So, and it didn't know the file's name because I called it something else. But let's see what happens if we run these tests. And it worked. Cool. So we've got our extract hashtags function. So you can see, like, with very little work, we've got a very reasonably complex domain model that supports, labels and all sorts of things like that, and a reasonably extracting hashtags, right? And we haven't had to spend the time writing and debugging this library. So let's jump into here and let's generate some SDLs, right? So I'm going to say, RedwoodJS SDL, we're going to call it user. And of course, this is going to give an error until we create task and label, but that's okay. Task and label, and this one should not give an error. Cool. All right. So let's go look at some of our SDLs. Let's go look at task.sdl. And you can see here it's of course mapped our type to the GraphQL schema, and we've now got our GraphQL type. So let's make something that displays this, right? I think this would be a really cool next step. Would be let's start rendering our tasks, which is going to be neat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I've got the following. I have the following GraphQL schema. And, oops, like that. So let's copy you. And then we're going to make a label. I'm going to copy the label schema. And I guess probably not. So the user's not super interesting here. So we don't need to give it the user. And so what I want to say is create a React TypeScript component using Mantine UI that displays a given list of tasks. Each task should have what do we call it? Each task should have a checkbox, its name, and we call it its title and description. And any and we're going to say subtasks should be nested below it. Subtasks should be nested below. Use mock data, don't call graph. And of course, we could call the API, but I think using some mock data is going to be easier. Cool. And so we're going to, as it does this, it's creating a task list component. So we're going to just generate that yarn redwood gen component task list. And I guess while we're at it, let's also generate a home page, right? Yarn root g page home, and we're going to call it / just so we have a little playground to start to put this stuff in. And as this generates here, pretty cool, right? You can already see it's starting to, it's making the left margin equal to the level. It's probably also going to create like a task list component, I would suspect. Now, one limitation, there you go, right? One limitation, of course, of ChatGPT is that it's trained on like data from 2011. And so with Redwood, and even with Mantine, these libraries move really, really quickly, right? I think the latest version of Redwood that ChatGPT knows about is Redwood 0.38 or something, which must seem like a lifetime ago. And so you often, like, this is often a good starting point, but for example, I can already see like these call components, the grid system's changed quite a bit in Mantine. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of refactoring here, but we've got a really good starting point. And so let's jump in here and we'll refactor this and we'll start to play with it. So we've got this tag list component, task list.tsx. Let's go, boop. Here we got this, and we've got our stuff, and you're gonna see already there's some red. They now call this the P instead of padding. And then the other thing that I saw is this column thing's just not gonna work. And so we're gonna just say this, we're gonna get rid of this column, and that's okay. This will put it in the column anyway. We can fix our input here, and we should be good to go. Okay. And so we've got that, and now it looks like it's coming up with some mock data. And so let's give it a sec here. Let's just take this. And you can see it came up with subtasks and things like that. So we're just going to copy this mock data. Let's go to our home page and let's see how this works. So we can just say, we'll paste our mock data in here. You could also use Storybook if you want to, but I'm being a little fast and loose here for the purposes of this talk. And so what we're gonna give this a task list, and it's gonna say we need tasks, right? And let's give it its mock tasks. Done. Let's see how that looks. So I've got to, of course, start my dev server. And you can see it cut off here, by the way, on ChatGPT. It's got a limited window, and it'll eventually just stop. But look at that. We've got our task list. Now, of course, we haven't hooked up callbacks or anything like that, so we can't we can't click these. These are controlled components, but how cool is that, right? That looks pretty reasonable. You can imagine adding things to here. We'd have to add some UI for how do you input a subtask? Maybe press tab, but looks pretty good. I might even go in and say, like, one thing that's actually changed in Mantine is the way that they do labels on checkboxes. So rather than being the child component, it's gonna just take a label component. And so what we could say is, let's cut this, and we're gonna say label equals, give it that component, and now it's gonna look even better. Maybe, maybe that, or we could even do this. We could say label is, anyway. I could go on about this. This stuff's pretty cool, right? We have our component, like a fairly robust one. I wouldn't have thought to do that margin thing. I'm not much of a front end developer. So that is a cool starting point. So now let's jump into it. And again, we could hook this up. We could ask it to write some GraphQL queries. We could hook this up to the back end, right? With an hour-long talk, I think we could probably build this whole application in the 20 minutes we have. Let's move on. So, like I said, I set up the authentication, but one thing that I don't love is that, let's go to sign up, is that I used Mantine. This isn't Mantine. I would like this to look like Mantine. And so let's go to the login component, or the signups component rather. We're at and let's get it to use Mantine and say the following. We're going to paste in all that code, and we're going to say rewrite the above code to use React, TypeScript, and Mantine. Right, and you can see we pasted this whole thing in. And of course, it's ChatGPT. They're going to tell you how to install Mantine and React and all that kind of stuff. And we'll give it a sec, and it's creating this page for us. And the really cool thing is we'll need to do a few edits, but like this will get us pretty far. And as you can see here, we should be using the link component from Redwood, not this router DOM, but this is getting use form from Redwood rather than just using React hook form directly, although I guess either would be fine. But as you can see, this is going to get us pretty far. And so we'll give this a sec to generate. some like elevator music or something. If I could beatbox, we could make this more interesting. And to be clear, this is probably not going to work right out of the box. Like, we're going to paste it in, we're going to get some errors. We're going to fix those errors. It's the but it saves a ton of time. And you know, and on the other side of this as well is, like, I'm sure that OpenAI is working on, like, how do we get more real-time data, especially in this world where open source things change so quickly. You know, even if they update it to Redwood as it looks today, it's gonna, you know, Redwood, of course, is gonna be at version 100 in a year or two, I'm sure. No pressure, guys, no pressure. And we're it's creating all these, and so just take a sec. Cool. All right, so we got our code. Let's copy it. Let's just paste it right in. We're going to save, and we're probably going to get an error. There we go. Use toasts was not found in Mantine hook. What did we use before for toasts? Let's see. Oh, interesting. So you can see here it's using an old version of the how Mantine did toasts. We're not going to migrate the toast, so I'm just going to say, let's just comment this out for now. So we're not going to have nice toasts here, but we are going to create this stuff. So let's get rid of that. We could of course update this. We're going to get rid of link, and we're going to get rid of this use toasts. Let's call it, rather than having a main, we're going to just call this a container, which is like the standard Mantine container. This is going to be P instead of padding. Close the container, get rid of the column, and we're going to add the import to the router. Cool. So that looks pretty good, right? And then we could figure out how to do the toast, and look at that. Not perfect, but with a minute or so of work, we end up with this really nice Mantine themed sign up page. And we could do this with a login page as well, right? I'm sure that if we change this to let's maybe call this align. I think they just have a center object. Center. Yeah. Let's see. I wonder if this fixes it. And look at that, right? We can iterate on this a little bit, but like, this is not a thing that's going to get you a perfect final output in your first go, but it's going to let you move really, really quickly. And so to recap what we did here, right, we designed these data models, we built this cool task view, right, that we could edit to make it use real data. And we, of course, created our new sign up page that is using Mantine UI. The last thing I want to show you is just how I can use this for other stuff, right, outside of engineering. And so, like, let's say write a social media post announcing my amazing to-do list application, talk about features, and asking people to sign up. Lots of emojis. ChatGPT 4 loves emojis. And look at that, it even came up with a name. Fantastic to-do list app. Yeah, 3 out of 5, but it's pretty neat. And so I find this is really useful. A way that I use these kind of features, honestly, just for a little bit, like, one is they're visually appealing and it's fun, but I also use it for motivation, right? Like a thing that Amazon does, they have this idea of PR FAQs, like write your press release first, announce it to the world, get people excited about it, and you'll in turn find both, like, validate the need for this, but also, like, you can find it very motivating, right? And so I find when I'm working on my own side projects, writing fun things like this, not to share, not to post on social media or anything like that, I find they can be very, very motivating. Other things I've used it for are like describing, overcoming challenges. You get some customer support and you can say, like, how do I solve this, right? There's a lot of really cool ways to essentially just use ChatGPT as a sounding board, as a rubber duck that helps you move really, really quickly. So it's a tool like any other, right? It has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. You're going to find things that it does amazingly well. You're going to find things that it really, really struggles with. And my overall recommendation is incorporate this into your development workflow, right? Start to understand this tool, learn about its capabilities, learn about how it's going to help you build better software that delights your customers. Once again, I'm Martin. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and thank you for building Redwood and being part of this awesome community. A lot of the startups that we've launched are building on Redwood, and as great as the tooling and the technology is, the people are what make it amazing. And so we're so grateful for the core team at Redwood and all the community members that have helped and participated. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all later.
All right, Martin, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Hey, fantastic. Let me spotlight you, and let's go 8 minutes or so for questions. I'd love you to dive a little bit more into what you said at the end, and just get to. So when we first talked about this, you told me how you'd spent a morning going through a startup idea that you'd spent years noodling on, and you said, I spent a morning, I picked it back up and I used ChatGPT, and I did the business research and strategy. I worked on the marketing website. I built the app, and your mind was blown because of your productivity. And granted, you've been noodling on this you've been thinking about it for a while, but like ChatGPT was definitely the accelerant to get you to not just, which was awesome, the workflow to actually build out the code and scaffold some things quickly, which was fun to see do that with Redwood, but like the whole idea to create a product to be revenue generating. So I just fill in some more details, like you hit on it at the end, but that energy you had when we first talked just really got me excited.
Yeah, I mean, these tools, like I said, they're tools like any other. So there's a lot of, if you guys hear me okay, there's a lot of background noise here, but good, cool. A lot of great tooling and powerful things. What I built is an app for learning Chinese, right? Of reading and writing Mandarin, and in particular the writing side, right? It's algorithmic. You're matching a user-drawn stroke to an underlying data set of strokes, right? You're building spaced repetition and all these kind of things. There's a whole syncing an offline app to, like, syncing your server to your offline app so you can study on the subway, right? All these kind of things are like, each one's a messy, hard problem, right? And it takes a while to get right and to tune and things like that. But then there's the other side of it of like, how do you market this? How do you write all the marketing copy? How do you brainstorm new features for it and all that kind of stuff? And so I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this and building prototypes and things like that. But on the algorithm side, right, I built a better stroke matching algorithm than me in like 15 minutes. And I sort of knew the questions to ask, but it it figured it out for me. And then even more so, I was like, hey, how can I do this for Korean and Japanese as well? And it's like, oh, here's some data sets. Like it found the data sets for me, which I probably would have found on my own, but like it just kind of pulled all this stuff together in minutes, right? And so this level of acceleration. And then, the other thing I was finding with myself as I write code or just build stuff, it'll be like 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and I'll get to like a meaty problem. And like, oh, here's the next like big thing. And it's like, it's hard to like go from one thing and then just to another giant thing, right? And so I'll go for a walk, right? I'll noodle on it for a few days. And here I can just like describe it to ChatGPT in sort of like an unformed way, right? Like I'm just like, here's all my raw notes and here's what I'm thinking about, like, how do I do this? And ChatGPT will be like, well, install this Python library, run this command, and here's some code that does it. So for example, I'm in Boston right now, and I was taking the train up, and I've got this, like, it's a stupid idea, but it's a fun idea of building, like, like there's like these affirmation videos on YouTube, and it's like, I am a great engineer, I am, whatever. Automate it with ChatGPT and then make a video. And I was like, I don't know how to make a video from like a bunch of audio files. And I was like, how do I do that? And it like wrote the code. It was in this tool called like iMovie or something. So it wrote this code that essentially, given a bunch of MP3s, like generates a video of these MP3s with like a nice waveform of the audio and stuff like that. And so like, I've never made a video before, and it just does it for me, right? And I feel like I could have figured that out, but I couldn't have figured that out in 5-10 minutes, right? Another example with one of the companies I work with, we built a Chrome plugin by saying like, write a Chrome plugin that does this, right? And the idea was it would pull, like, you're in Gmail, you click a button, it pulls like the emails in your like the current thread that you have open, and it cross-references it with your CRM, and it just did it. We could figure out how to write a Chrome plugin, but like not in 5 minutes. And so it was really, really, it's so powerful for those kind of things that just mean that like the thing that used to be a 2-day task, in which point you have to like really weigh, is this the thing that's worth doing, becomes a 5-minute task, in which case it's absolutely worth doing. And to me, like that is just so many compounding effects in building a business. And then I guess the other side of it too is that I'm a terrible salesperson, but like ChatGPT can at least pitch my product in an appealing way, right? Customer support, right? A thing I've learned, especially with my work of working with all these B2B SaaS companies, is when someone asks a question or has like an objection, there's often like a question within that question, right? Or the reason they're objecting is there's something deeper, and using it as a tool to say like, what are some reasons the person might be declining here? And it turns out, well, it's not that they don't want your product, it's that they're worried that you're not going to be around in 6 months because you're brand new startup. Okay, well, how do you like alleviate that concern, right? And it's a very good thought partner. It's both like good at like helping me step out of myself, but also just being a thought partner and exploring those things. So all those things, and it's just in that way, like all the stuff I'm bad at, I'm now like mediocre at, which is great. And then the stuff I'm good at, I'm like really good at. So it's this great. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I have superpowers. Like I feel like I have superpowers when I use this.
That's fun.
So that was a bit of a rambling response, but
no, that's all right. I think there is a little, thanks for jumping on today. I know your schedule changed. There's the background noise is coming and going, but the enthusiasm I get, and I can repeat a few things that you said. Before I do, anyone from the core team here that's on, have any questions for Martin? I'll also check our YouTube comments to see if there's questions over there. Not too many. I think the thing I wanted to say is a shared experience. And for those where the audio was coming in and out a little bit there at the end, what Martin was talking about is how I love what you said. Like, there's things that I'm like bad at, and now I'm mediocre at, and things that I'm good at, now I'm really good at them. And I've had that similar experience as well. I still need to know like what to ask and where to prompt, but that iteration process and the brainstorming is really accelerated, and it's same experience for me. It does seem to unlock. I had to write a playwright test a week ago. I don't know playwright very well, and it nailed the playwright test immediately for me. I had to go through a new process. I was like installing a new library. I didn't know how to do that, and there was a complicated like multi-step process. And instead of going through the docs, I just asked ChatGPT to like walk me through the installation setup process, and it nailed it. I easily saved me like an hour of like trying to splice a workflow together, and it was really, really exciting, really impressive. So if there's not any more, I'm not seeing a lot of other questions. Oh, we've got one. Here's a question, Martin. I've been using the tool for several creative tasks. Do you see a place for other generative AI voice in your process? I'm not sure if they mean specifically like a voice kind of command or not, but any other AI generative tools in your process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also just experimenting and iterating with all this stuff. The tools that I like the most right now, so obviously GPT. For more of the B2B stuff, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on their name. The other big LLM, I want to call them Regain, but it's not Regain. Cohere has some really good ones around like document management and stuff. Vector DBs are really powerful, right? This is like, you've got a corpus of data that you want your tool to be able to work with. So being able to query thousands of pages of documents, ends up being really powerful. Tools like 11 Labs that do like lifelike text to speech are just incredible, right? So now it's like you're talking to a human. And then if you just want to make fun, silly Balenciaga videos, d-id.com is like, give it a picture and some audio, and it like will make your lips move and stuff like that, and make you blink. It's like weird and surreal and fun. But yeah, I think like the long term is it's LangChain, right? It's being able to hook these tools up in different interesting ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, many, not just ChatGPT.
I hope we see more of that. Martin, thank you so much. If you would how about this? If you will send me in whatever direct message format of your choice, send me some links to some of the things you just mentioned. Also send us a little more information about Fractal and what you all are doing. I highly encourage anyone, if you're looking to join a startup or if you're looking to start a startup, Fractal's a phenomenal partner, and they basically package up a business for you and hand over foundership to you and work with you to get you there. We've really enjoyed working with Fractal Labs and really excited about the Fractal startups that we've been in relationship with and helping. So send me that information. I'll add it to the YouTube channel, and we'll get the video that you created uploaded as well separately, Martin. I'll loop those back so you can respond to comments there. Thank you, sir. You have a good day. All right, I'm moving over to David Thyresson and Josh Walker. We have two members of the Redwood Core Team that are about to demo some exciting new experiments that are coming up for Redwood. David Thyresson has been with Redwood since very beginning. We were version 0. I'm not sure if you know, but I'm guessing it was sub 0.10.
I think it was around 11.
Around 11. All right, very good.
11-ish.
And DT, you've been a hero in the Redwood community, and you've also advanced a lot of the core Redwood features and functionality. Josh Walker, new to the core team this year, and it turns out every engineering team is in need of a good astrophysicist. Josh has been working hard with DT for what they're about to show you, and I'm going to let them take it from here. I'll have the video queued up as well, so you two just let me know when you want me to present that. But for now, I'll disappear.
Great. So today we want to introduce Redwood Studio, and this is something that will be coming up in the next release candidate for version 5. And it's going to be an experimental package, and this is something you're going to start seeing more often in Redwood as we try out various features and keep them experimental to get feedback before rolling into the framework main. So experimental packages will be kind of tests, we'll get feedback, get more contributions, and then based on everybody's feedback, and if things are going well, roll them into the framework whole. So what is Redwood Studio? It's something I'm really excited to kind of introduce and see how people like it. We had seen in Redwood that there was something kind of lacking as you started to build your apps with GraphQL and you wanted to see what was going on. You had logs, which was fine. You had some, browser console information. You had some performance timing with plugins, but there was no place to kind of collect all that information and see it in real time. So we wanted to build, and we kind of said, can we build dev tools that help you to debug and iterate, try out code, refactor code, and see how the changes are working in kind of real time. So you could help see, are my GraphQL queries slow? Are there some N+1 queries? And one of the principles of Redwood is allowing, we want to let you focus on what makes your app special, and don't force you to figure out what technologies and setup and on that. So the Dev Studio gives that for you. So we're going to talk about a little bit Dev Studio, what it is. Josh is going to do a demo, so you're going to get to see it, and then we'll talk about what's happening in the future. So what is Studio? Studio is going to combine these 4 things, and it's all backed by OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry, we're going to roll into the framework so that you can start automatically instrumenting your API. So the Studio is going to be a space that is going to consume OpenTelemetry information. It will give you tracing information. What does that mean? You'll see it in the demo, but you get to see what's going on in the background. When does a GraphQL query fire? What's all the functions that executes? What's all the timing? What requests happen? And what resolvers are then subsequently called? So you can get to see the overall flow of what one request does. When you're using GraphQL and Redwood, you make a request and everything happens and comes back and you get a response. But it's difficult to see what's going on behind it. And even if you have logs, they stream away at 1,000 miles per hour. And unless you've captured them, you can't really read them. And you can't necessarily, and it's easier to see them in a visual way. So we're going to use tracing. We're going to have SQL statement logging so you can see what actually has been being called at a SQL level for queries. Some general metrics to see, how often are resolvers being called, how many functions are being called, how many requests are being made. And then one of the improvements we'd like to make is Redwood had a way of setting up GraphQL Playground headers. If you've used Redwood and the GraphQL Playground, you know that Redwood requires auth by default in a lot of cases to make your GraphQL APIs secure. So that when you use the Playground, you need a way to impersonate a user so that you can call mutations or make sort of requests. And we had a set of command that allowed you to kind of inject that into your Playground. And it worked well, but we think that the Studio can improve that. So the Studio will embed the GraphQL Playground in the Studio. So it's going to be as part of a separate little app that you'll see. And because of that, we can have much more control over how your user authentication is impersonated, and it will refresh, and it'll keep live, and it'll be just a general much better experience. So why are we doing this? Again, it's about observability, and we want to let you identify slow running SQL statements in such a way. We want you to be able to maybe identify and improve N+1 queries and compare like the performance later. And we want you to have a better GraphQL experience. So Josh, if you would, I'm going to hand it over to you so that people can actually see.
Yeah, sure.
Josh, do you want me to start the demo now?
Yes, if you could cue that up, that'd be great.
Okay, will do. If you guys will just make sure that when I start playing, you've got audio and video. So I'll look to chat for that confirmation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh from the Redwood Core Team, and I wanted to do a very quick demo of our two new experimental features, which are Open Telemetry support and the Redwood Studio. So if we have a quick look at this example project I have in front of me, we'll find that it is a very basic blog post site. So if we refresh, so we have 3 posts on our homepage. We can view each post. There's an about page, contact us form, an admin CRUD view, and we have a DB auth set up here, so we have auth. So let's have a look now at 2 experimental features. So we have Yarn, Redwood, Experimental, which you can shorten to EXP for convenience. Setup, Open Telemetry. So this will do a number of steps, but the first one is just to confirm that you understand it's still experimental. And I'll talk through the changes whilst it continues here. So inside the tool, we'll see that there's now an experimental.OpenTelemetry block. It simply contains a toggle to turn it on and off at your convenience, and an API SDK file location. So this is also a generated file for you, which contains the boilerplate code necessary to set up OpenTelemetry during your development, so during Yarn Redwood dev. It has a number of things in here which you can find more information on from the OpenTelemetry docs online. But one of the most important things to note is that we're exporting all of our telemetry data to localhost v1/traces, which happens to be also where the studio is listening, so that will be convenient later. And you'll also see that by default, we instrument HTTP requests, Bastify, Prisma, and we also do a GraphQL from a plugin we register internally as well. So our setup command is finished, then we'll see a link to our form page, which is where we'd love to hear your feedback and any bug requests or feature requests as well. So if we spin back up the dev server, we will hopefully see that there's been absolutely no change, because all we have done is instrument our code, which should not have any user-facing changes. And indeed it hasn't. Apart from the fact now that we see in our terminal, we have a load of errors, because there's no one listening at 4318 to collect all this tracing data. So this is where the studio comes in. Yarn, Redwood, experimental studio. Now this will automatically open up on localhost 4318. So if we go there, we'll see this new web interface, which is the Redwood Studio. Now it's primarily designed to give you insights into your Redwood project. So what it'll do is it'll listen for all the open telemetry tracing that's coming from your project. So if we do some refreshing here, generate some more test data, we'll see that we no longer have all these errors in our console because the telemetry is being ingested into the studio. And we can see that, for example, we have 14 traces now covered. So if we have a look through those, it's a tracing view. It lists all of the traces that have come in. And we can see when they come in, how long they took, and some little features as to what was going on inside them. So this is the timeline view, where we see a rough breakdown of all of the spans that happened within the trace. So there was a HTTP post that involved a land request handler, and then we have one big blog post query, which is a GraphQL operation. So it has a operation name, it has a result here, it has any variables, and it has the document that was executed. So we can see each of the individual resolvers or fields being resolved. So there's post, post, post for 3 posts. And continue down, we can see all of the fields that GraphQL is trying to resolve, including relationships. So we're also looking for the authors here as well. Now we have Prisma instrumented by default as well. So we can see here that we're making SQL statements. So we're selecting posts here, for example, and then we're selecting authors here from our user. So this is a way to go through and see what's happening during your request. But we also, by default, automatically wrap all of your API code. So we can see here, for example, PostJS and post services. So if we have a look there, API src services post. This function is being automatically in the background wrapped within an open telemetry span, which is enabling us to see our timings here and any results. We executed this DB statement as a consequence of calling our posts. So that's the timeline view. We also have a flame table view, which shows us all of the spans that are being executed, how many, and some timings and some statistics around it. So for example, P90 and P95s. There's also a Prisma queries view, which simply shows a table of all the Prisma queries that were executed. And I'll leave you to examine that further yourself. Now we also have the SQL statements tab, which simply shows a long list of all of the SQL statements that are being executed by your app, the SQL statement themselves, any insights, the duration, when it happened, and the trace that it's linked to. So you can click here and go back to the trace it came from. So that's the studio's tracing. We also have a feature of GraphQL the playground. So this has been implemented inside the studio. And we can see that if we go here, we can say, okay, I would like all of the posts with the ID, the title, and the created app. You can run that here, and we get the results. This was possible as well in previous versions of Redwood, but what was difficult in this case is user impersonation. So if we go, for example, instead want to look at contacts, and we'll look at ID, message, and name. We'll run it. We don't have permission to do this because we're not currently authenticated. So this is where the auth impersonation comes in. Now the user impersonation is controlled via the TOML. So we have some documentation on some UTOML config. So we can see here, if I copy it from the documentation, we have experimental.studio.graphql.auth impersonation. So the test project I'm using uses dbauth, and I wish to impersonate user with user ID 1. So I'll save that. I'll go back to my project. I'm going to refresh this page. And what you'll see down here now is we've automatically set the headers necessary. So we've said we're using dbauth, association bearer 1, and we've set a cookie that will impersonate your user. And if we run this query, which we were previously not allowed to do because we weren't authenticated, we'll see that we do get data back. Unfortunately, there's no data being returned because it doesn't exist, but we can now successfully execute the query. We can also execute mutations. So let's have a look at, let's add a mutation. Let's do a create contact, email, testing, message, testing, and name, testing, name. And give me back the ID. So let's execute this. You can see this now. And if we go ahead and execute the query again, now we'll see, oh, we're not authenticated, sorry, we'll need to refresh, sorry. Once we have this token, we need to make sure we have the header set, sorry. Then we'll see that we do get the data back. So it's possible now to impersonate users very easily just by changing values in your TOML and not by manipulating the headers in a tedious way. So those are two current experimental features, OpenTelemetry and Studio. Now, Studio relies on OpenTelemetry for all of the tracing and the insights it gets from that, but you can still use the auth impersonation without it. So the final thing I just wanted to say is that if we go to the forum, the RedwoodJS forums, we have an experimental features category, which lists the OpenTelemetry support and Redwood Studio as experimental features here, along with some other interesting experiments that are running in the background. And this is where we'd love to see this is where the docs live, sorry, first of all, for all these experimental features. And we also would love to see your comments. So any feedback, any bug reports, any feature requests, things like that would be very useful and we'd love it. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thanks, Josh. Let me finish up here with kind of the future. So I'm again, I think Studio is really, really, really cool. You can see even just with its little feature set, how much information it provides. And where can we go from here? It's experimental, so we're going to change the feature set. Something's going to be added. We're going to improve various other things, and maybe some things will go away depending on where it's going. But here's some ideas. So we could have more metric widgets. So what was your time from launching dev? How long has dev been up? More counts of various metrics and queries. You may have seen kind of those little ellipses on insights. Right now we haven't implemented them, so we could have some nice warnings on slow queries, or warning if there's like an n+1 possibility, or something else. We want this to be kind of a companion app that helps you build your Redwood app. And can we surface these things so that you can be proactive and try them out in dev before you get out into prod. Obviously, this is ripe for charts and visualizations. If you've ever used any OpenTelemetry product before, you can see that there's line charts and histograms that summarize the various requests. It'd be great if we could track errors too. Why can't we send errors into it so that your studio can list everything, so you don't have to go back to your logs and try to pull them out of the logs. And we could do that through an enveloped GraphQL plugin that captures the errors and sends them along. Be really cool to instrument the website as well, which OpenTelemetry can do, because this is something we don't necessarily, we haven't done logging from the website, but we could send some of these instrumented payloads into the studio, and you don't have to maybe open up your dev console in your browser. We just saw ChatGPT. There's a great place to start asking questions about the schema or your app. Let's integrate OpenUI and say, hey, kind of what Martin just showed earlier. I've got my post model schema. Let's add something to that, and maybe it could help you render code. We could do Prisma ER diagrams. We could send the logs into it. So now, there's kind of this three-pronged set of observability that you'd like to have. You want your tracing performance metrics, you want your logs, and you want your errors. And if we could put all those in one spot, you've got you've got a lot of information at your fingertips to know what's going on. So like nothing's a mystery anymore. You may have seen a search bar atop of Josh's demo. It's not implemented, but let's do a search, so you can search through, bring back all the Prisma queries that are querying the post table. Show me all the errors in comments. Let's do notifications. So if there's a little insight or alert that says slow query, put a little notification there that says. And then you could have maybe some custom dashboards. Intelligence. What are some trends and anomalies? Are there more things going on? All kinds of tags. And, it's wide open, and this is where we'd love your feedback. Josh gave you that link, and your contributions to improve Studio. I'm sure once you start using it, you'll have some more ideas as well. Taking Martin's cue, I threw in our README and asked ChatGPT to write a social media post about Redwood Studio, and this is what it came up with. So check out Redwood Studio. It's an experimental observability tool for getting runtime insights into your project during development. With its combination of tracing, sequencing, and logging metrics and GraphQL Playground, Redwood Studio provides developers with the necessary observability to do all this wonderful stuff. Join our community and make it better. Blah, blah, blah. Hashtag. So, thanks very much. Would love everyone's feedback.
Gentlemen, that's amazing. I know this has been a long time coming. I feel like the theme of the two talks today and the presentations has been tools to make you a better developer. And I know that's been a vision of yours, DT, for a long time. Josh, it's been awesome to have you help contribute to this. And I want to say again to everyone, this is available now as an experimental feature that you can add on. And we're really excited to see what people do with it. Are there any questions, comments, excitements from the is that thing? Redwood Core Team that's here in the Zoom meeting. I'll look over on the YouTube stream as well and see if we have questions coming in for YouTube chats. I don't see a lot from the chat yet. Well, some people are watching. I'll wait. Anyone? It's quite all right. Josh, thank you so much for helping to make all this happen. Maybe another thing to say to people is, let me ask you, like, what are all the other things people could do with OpenTelemetry if they instrument their app now? And do you have, because the OpenTelemetry project is stable in and of itself, so do you have any recommendations on what people try to do, where some limits of that might be, production use cases? Like, what else can you do with OpenTelemetry, Dave?
Yeah, so I think the OpenTelemetry for JavaScript is fairly well developed. It's there. You'll see a lot of warnings that things are maybe perhaps experimental or are likely to change, but they're very, very conservative in their warnings. So if one tiny part of it is going to change, they're going to stay that it's very experimental. But a lot of this is very mature as well. So you could start using this inside your dev server, like it is. The ability to use it in production is not baked into the framework right now, so you'd maybe need to do a little bit of tinkering. But we've seen that some of the startups that use Redwood do use OpenTelemetry in production, and they use some of the other third-party services like Datadog, application monitoring, to do that, and they have success with that. So immediately there's already users who have great insight from all their tracing data, and use it, every day to watch out for trouble.
And where would you like to see the OpenTelemetry work go? Or if people wanted to come along, give feedback and contributing, what are you looking for? What are you hoping for?
Just to enable it, experiment with it, see what it tells you, see what you had to hunt to find, what it didn't tell you. Use it in some of the places that we haven't put it yet. Put it on the website and see if it actually does give good insights. Doesn't, just whenever you run into a problem, see if it helped you, see if it didn't. If it didn't, maybe we can help you in the future. It's all just about kind of accelerating that. There's an issue, what is the information around it, and how do I move forward? So just explore with it and break it, and just do all sorts of crazy things to it.
I think also share how and where you're sending it in production, because there's a lot of different. This is a little bit for the inspiration for Studio, is that we knew we had OpenTelemetry instrumentation, but it takes quite a bit. It's complicated to set up something to start ingesting this, and Studio lets you start experimenting with telemetry early on in dev without having to do all that stand up. You don't need a Docker container to, Josh knows this much better than I do, the various things that it takes to start doing it. So sharing your stories about where and how you are sending telemetry out in the cloud. And yeah, that's
one of the motivations as well, was that to use this in dev might be a bit difficult. Like DT was saying, a lot of the production side things are either very complex to set up yourself and self-host, or they're relatively quite expensive. We're talking thousands of dollars a month sometimes for these production type ingestion. So being able to kind of lower that down and for you to use it in dev is just it's great, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Gentlemen, really excited about Studio. I know it's been something we've been talking about for months now, that could wait till it goes public. So, and for all of you, Devin with Redwood right now, or maybe taking a look at Redwood for the first time, we're really excited to see what your feedback and reaction is to it. The vision here is that it's going to give you enhanced abilities as a developer to do it better and have insights into things that always have felt pretty black box so far, really hard to observe, especially what's going on with Prisma, what's happening when that mutation is running on the Prisma side. Like, those have been hard things to have any visibility into. So does it give you superpowers? We want to know, what superpowers would you like to have that doesn't give you yet? We'd like to know that as well. Thank you. And thank you to Martin again, if you're on. It was a pleasure to have you show us what you're doing with ChatGPT right now and your enthusiasm for that. Thank you everyone for tuning in for another Redwood Talk session. We'll see you next month. We manage this event on Luma. If you want to register, and you'll get a notification every time this event comes up, as well as information about what the talks are going to be. You can also follow us on the old YouTube channel. You'll get notifications when we go live as well. We'll upload both the videos from the presentations today, so you'll get more of an HD resolution of those, and you can follow along a little more closely. And as always, we'll see you in the forums in the community. We're excited to see what you build with Redwood. Have a good day, all.